We're like, why are these siblings getting along so well? Cringe.
These freaks. Welcome to Rom-Com Bomb, a sex ed with DB podcast series where in every episode we go under the covers with a beloved rom-com, strip away its hidden toxic messages, and rewrite the script on love and sex. In a world that constantly encourages you to change, it's bold to just be yourself. Sexual expression and satisfaction are different for everybody, so rather than conforming to others, focus on falling in love with who you are. Lion's Den sources the very best products to help you find what you like, and to help you feel confident expressing your sexual desires. You can get 15% off in-store and online using code SEXEDWITHDB at lionsden.com to begin exploring everything about yourself. Follow them on social at Lions Den Adult on Instagram and TikTok.
Ever feel like the wellness landscape is missing something and that conversations are very one-size-fits-all? And that the conversations don't necessarily apply to your experiences? Hi, I'm Dr. Cassandra Dunbar, the host of the Be Well Sis podcast. Be Well Sis explores everything from hormonal health to aging to relationships and everything in between. The Be Well Sis podcast is your home for insightful conversations with incredibly inspiring women from all walks of life. Join us every week and tune into an episode that is crafted to help you thrive physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. The Be Well Sis podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. Be Well Sis.
You know you love your partner deeply, but your sex life hasn't been the best. You try to spice things up, but get overwhelmed and feel confused as to why your intimacy has been waning. This is a story I hear again and again, so know that you're not alone. I recently started working with an incredible brand called Aria, and I want to tell you about them. Aria is a service for couples that makes it easy to break out of routine, deepen emotional connection, and energize their relationship with curated experiences called scenes. You will also receive access to the Aria concierge, who's like your relationship's wingman, a real person, not a robot, who feels out your vibe and serves up spicy monthly experiences for two. Plus, hand-picked premium items delivered discreetly and directly to your door. If this sounds like just the thing you need, don't wait. Pause this episode and visit arya.fyi and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off now, because your partnership deserves it. Let's talk about a lube I absolutely love, Uberlube. Uberlube makes sex better for everyone by reducing friction and increasing pleasure. Whether you're using it for solo sex, sex with a partner, or both, Uberlube has a long-lasting performance that lets skin feel skin. It has simple, body, and condom-friendly ingredients, is scent and color-free, dissipates when no longer needed so there's no sticky residue, and is recommended by leading doctors. Use code SEXEDWITHDB for 10% off at uberlube.com. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Rom-Com Bomb. I am your host, DB, sex educator, pleasure expert, and rom-com critic. And this week, we are talking divorce, rekindled affairs, therapy tropes, and whether closure is just a myth. And to get us through all of this delicious mess, we are joined by the one and only Nicoletta Heidegger, a licensed marriage and family therapist, sexologist, and host of Sluts and Scholars, the award-nominated sex-positive podcast for professionals who prioritize pleasure. Nicoletta, welcome to Rom-Com Bomb. How you doing?
Oh, so excited to be here. Thank you for having me and talk about all the vomtastic things.
We actually haven't said the word vomtastic on here. Thank you so much for bringing
Not
that.
yet. Wow. Not yet. Okay.
We're like over halfway through the season, so vomtastic. Excellent. I love that so much. Okay, before we get into it, I want to go over the trivia teaser for this week's episode. She's won Oscars, played queens, witches, chefs, and fashion editors, but this rom-com marked a career first for Meryl Streep. Stick around to the end of the episode to find out what she'd never done on screen until this movie. And the episode reveal, today we're reviewing It's Complicated. Nicoletta, what is your relationship to this film? How excited are you?
I'm very excited. I definitely remember having watched it before, but I just had moments that I remembered and then got to rewatch it in preparation for this podcast. So, and I mean, I just love Meryl Streep. So,
who doesn't?
Yeah. So it's hard to dislike things. So I'm a little bit biased, but I think I was able to try to objectively watch it.
Oh, cannot wait to get your therapist and sexologist take. Because okay, I have to be honest, I have to fess up. This is one of my like top 5 all-time favorite rom-coms. I just love the Nancy Meyers of it. You know, Nancy Meyers is known for like coastal grandma elite, I think. And so she's done It's Complicated, she's done The Holiday, she's done The Parent Trap.
Oh,
Like
I love The Holiday too. And I love
love
The Houses in there also. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
That's always my problem is like, how do these people afford these fucking houses?
How do they what are they doing?
I know she's a lovely she's a pastry chef in this film.
She's a pastry chef and
she
a
has this
bakery owner.
Like Montecito estate in Santa Barbara. And it's just gorgeous.
She's a trillionaire somehow.
Those chocolate croissants are really fucking good, apparently.
Oh my God. I love this film so much. It really reminds me of like me and my mom would just like watch this movie a lot growing up for me. It's like kind of on the edge of rom-com vom what we usually do. We usually do like 90s, 80s, early 2000s, but this is 2009. So I feel like there's enough, 16 years old, there's enough to dig into here.
That's just depressing for me to know.
I know.
But it's old now.
Old. I know that's old, but I think you'd be surprised. Like some of the tropes that showed up 15 years ago wouldn't necessarily show up in the same rom-coms today. So I think we're improving, but okay, here's a quick refresh. If you haven't seen It's Complicated like we have so recently. So in It's Complicated, Meryl Streep plays Jane, a successful bakery owner who begins an affair with her ex-husband, Jake, aka Alec Baldwin, who is now remarried to a much younger woman, played by Lake Bell, named Agnes. Amazing name. Meanwhile, Steve Martin, unbelievable cast, plays the sweet architect hired to renovate her kitchen, very Nancy Meyers, and her grown children are just trying to process it all. And hijinks, heartbreak, and high-end countertops ensue. So,
and also like great to have like the boyfriend of the eldest daughter be what's his name from The Office?
John Krasinski. How did I forget him?
Yeah, he's just like he really saves the day.
He does. I just love his cutie character. He really does kind of play Jim. If you could choose one scene that defined this film for you when you were younger and what you remembered maybe before the rewatch, what would that scene be?
2 scenes, really. I think one was her in bed with someone with tousled hair, and I remember it being Steve Martin, even though it would have been Alec Baldwin.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler.
In a hotel, maybe.
Yeah, in a hotel, just had sex vibes. And then the other scene that I remember vividly was when they like secretly smoked weed in the bathroom.
Oh my
and
God.
They were
That's
just
so
like
good.
came out of the party and they were just high and like couldn't function. So I think it was very high school, right? I was like, sex, marijuana, like, you know, it's just whatever sort of
shocking
things were exciting to me.
Oh my God. We got to talk about the bathroom smoking weed scene because they're just so funny and silly. And I feel like these are comedians and actors of our parents' generation. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like we could kind of like superimpose like, oh, these could be our parents who are like smoking weed at our graduation party and getting super high and being inappropriate.
Yeah. There's also, I had missed this scene and in the rewatch I got it, but like Alec Baldwin does like a shotgun, meaning like a blows weed smoke into John Krasinski's mouth, and it's like very intimate, and I like didn't remember that part, but it's very like sensual and erotic, and I was like, what is happening?
Like, sir, this is your future son-in-law. What's happening here?
Yeah, that was some like hot porn line undertones there happening.
Yeah, I also love that part, and also just found it so funny because John Krasinski just keeps coughing and clowning. Yeah. I think one of my favorite scenes of the film remains to be kind of the hijinks that ensue when they're having an affair at the hotel room and John Krasinski sees each of them. Alec Baldwin comes in first, gets a key. He's like trying to make his fiance not look to see that the dad is there. And then the mom is there and then they kiss in the elevator and it's just craziness. And I just feel like we as the audience knew that this was very naughty and that they weren't supposed to be doing this, but we then end up being the John Krasinski gaze where we're like, what the hell is going on here? This is crazy.
Yes. That's a great one too. A lot of good scenes.
So many good scenes. Okay, before we kind of rip this movie to shreds, what do we like about it? What do you think works in this film?
First, I love just that there's like sex positivity and pleasure positivity with older women.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like Meryl has this group of awesome friends, and I love that they have this sort of, I don't know if it's weekly or monthly or whatever, but this ritual hangout where they get together and they like hang out at her house and they cook and they chat. And everyone is just so supportive of like sex and connection. Maybe too much so to where it's a little, maybe encouraging her to
Unhinged.
do things that might not be, in her value system. But there is a lot of support of just like, was it good? I want to know the details. There's like flirtation. And so it's just very supportive in that way. And even in the jokes too, there's a scene that I love when they are having an affair in the hotel where there's an issue. I don't know how much, I guess we're spoiling it for everybody, right? Because we're talking about it.
Listen, it's 15 years old. It's okay.
Yeah. So what happens, like, there's a time where he just has like a heart thing or fainted or something, and they need to get a doctor in there. And he's asking about things, and he mentioned he's taking like
Oh my God,
some medication.
Flomax, the
Yeah, he's
semen.
taking Flomax, and it affects your semen count. And he's trying to say like how his wife would be upset by that. And obviously Meryl is maybe beyond childbearing years in this. And so the doctor kind of looks at her and she's just like, yeah, I love a lot of semen.
I laugh out loud every time I see that.
Yeah. I love that. So there's a lot of positivity of just like ageless pleasure and ageless sexuality, which I love. And also that like you can continue to meet people and have positive experiences, have pleasurable sex. I think that's so great.
Could not agree more. I think like I absolutely love this like group of women friends. I love the dynamic between them, like you said. I love how cute and sweet Meryl is seen as. And clearly, like, this is a woman in her 50s, right? Like, she's had 3 kids, she has it all together. And yet we are rooting for her to have this affair, kind of, right? Like, we are excited by this because she's excited by it. And I just love, I don't know, there's so many things I love about this movie, but I just think that the writing makes it so clear that like she is a full woman who has wants and needs and regrets and is scared and fearful and successful and like all of these things. I just think she's such a strong female lead.
Yeah.
And
I really liked the realness of it, that it showcased like all of the emotions of being divorced and having been cheated on, as well as like co-parenting together. Like, it showed how she was like, I have had a full life for these last 10 years, but I still do get sad about, looking at a his and her sink.
Right.
Or like, I feel self-conscious about like showing my body, because this person hasn't seen my body in 10 years, but I also, like I'm going to therapy, and I also am like working at it, and I also like have moments of joy and do these self-care things. So there's a lot of just like realness, I think. And then I also really like, I mean, it's not all perfect, but there is a lot of good communication in the film, like talking about real feelings, talking about like, there's some not good ones as well, but like talking about real feelings and boundaries and desires, as well as like not coming from a place of just like punishment and anger around things. There's like a lot of mature moments of like hard conversations and boundary setting that I think is, there are a lot of good moments.
1000%. I also just love their natural chemistry. Like the chemistry that Meryl's character Jane has with Alec Baldwin's character Jake is like very fun and palpable. And the chemistry that Jane has with Adam, Steve Martin's character, is so fun. And again, like these are people in their 50s. Most rom-coms where they're showing sex and they're showing like this complicated nature of cheating and all of these things, like that's usually of people in their 20s and 30s. And I think that Nancy Meyers, who wrote and directed this film, did such a great job balancing all of those things. Now we're going to get to the rating before the rewatch. So I asked you to rate the film before the rewatch so we can compare our pre and post watch ratings. Well, let's go over our rating system here, our rom-com vom rating system. 1 vom is that it's dated, but mostly harmless. And 5 voms all the way at the end is like full body cringe, burn all the DVDs, we're aged like milk, like we're out. So 1 to 5 pre-watch, what did you rate It's Complicated?
I think I gave it a 2.
Okay, so you were like unsure, I might as well just kind of hit for the middle.
Yeah. It was because I was just like, sex and marijuana and Meryl Streep. Like, it's probably okay.
That gonna be.
Yeah.
I'm a freak, and I think I rewatch this movie at least once a year. So I think I've seen it more recently than today and yesterday when I started this rewatch.
Yeah.
So and again, I'm so biased. I just love this film. It's almost like how I feel about My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which is like, this film is perfect. So before the rewatch, I gave this a 0, only up from here because
that wasn't even an option. I thought
know,
it was 1 to 5.
Cheated. I'm so sorry.
You're so biased on this film.
We'll give it a 1. Let's talk about lube and condoms. Something important to know is that oil-based lube is not to be used with condoms because the oil can cause the condom to break or tear, which would defeat the purpose of using it. Thank goodness for Uberlube. Uberlube is latex compatible, so it's safe and effective to use with condoms. But wait, there's more. Dispensing 2 drops of Uberlube inside a condom and a measured pump outside will increase pleasure. What are you waiting for? Use code SEXEDWITHDB for 10% off at uberlube.com. When you think about the words pleasure and power, what comes to mind? If you're a fan, you know my answer will always be the magic wand. But what if I told you the magic wand could fit in the palm of your hand? Say hello to the Magic Wand Micro. The Magic Wand Micro may make you wonder how it can possibly represent a brand renowned for power. But once you turn it on, this impossibly powerful, multi-function, multi-speed massager proves it's a magic wand through and through. Same magic, now in pocket size. Use code SEXEDWITHDB at Lion's Den for 15% off your Magic Wand Micro now. We talk a lot about sex ed, but when we're shopping for products to support our sexual wellness, exploration, and expression, we head to the experts at Lion's Den. For 50 plus years, Lion's Den has been a leader in pleasure products. Whether you want to explore a new kink or add a little romance to your evening, Lion's Den has something for all. Each location is brightly lit and staffed with the very best experts in pleasure, passion, and romance, so you can feel comfortable and confident in your purchases. Lion's Den is offering our listeners 15% off your purchase in-store and online using code SEXEDWITHDB at lionsden.com. So now is where we rip this film to shreds as much as we can and get into that's problematic, all the things that the film does wrong, and kind of at the end we'll kind of talk about what it can do better and how we can
this must be really hard for you. I feel like we're about to rip to shreds like your grandmother.
Listen, I'm open to it. All right, I need your expertise as a sexologist therapist, right? Because the first thing I want to talk about, Nicoletta, which is the therapist interaction here. Okay, we're getting some eye rolls. So yeah. Let's talk about this, about what it is, and then we'll get your thoughts. So Meryl Streep has an impromptu appointment at her therapist. She bribes him basically with his favorite bakery treat and says, "Hey, I know you have an appointment. He has 20 minutes." And she's like, "Great, I'll talk fast." So basically, she tells him about this affair and makes a pros and cons list and reads from it. And so is expecting her therapist basically to give her permission to have this affair. And I wrote down some quotes here of what the therapist said and would love to hear what you think as a marriage and family therapist yourself. So the therapist says, "What's interesting is you seem more open than you have in a long time, maybe than I've ever seen you." And eventually he says, "Let go, Jane. It can't hurt." AKA, I give you my permission to have an affair with your ex-husband. Please give me your thoughts on this. Is this realistic? Is this enabling? Tell me everything.
Okay, well, first I just want to start with like the boundary aspect of it. I think therapists are just often portrayed as having like really piss poor boundaries.
Right.
And I mean, sure, are there therapists out there who struggle with boundaries? Of course. And boundaries are so key to the therapeutic alliance and therapeutic relationship. And so unless someone was like in crisis and I like had to take them to the hospital or get them into a psychiatric hold, like I would not allow someone to come to my office when I had 20 minutes in between on my time off.
Right. He has a dog. He just walked his dog. Where's the dog
Yeah,
gonna be?
to come in for a 20-minute session. Second, we usually, it depends on like the cultural appropriateness of it, but like gifts and trades are sometimes frowned upon, unless that's like something that's sort of part of that culture or community or something that you're a part of. So like, is he charging her for the time? Like I would charge my client for the time. Like,
right.
Again, these croissants must be really good. And so, yeah, the unboundariedness of it, I hate when therapists are portrayed that way. And then, yeah, the bribery. And to me, it's almost like a metaphor for the poor boundaries of like the affair, right? Where it's like, he's like, we're not having any boundaries in our therapeutic relationship. And now we're talking about like crossing a boundary in something else. It's like not really being modeled. So that, sort of inception level boundary crossing I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Look, a lot of therapists, they tell you not to give like direct advice, but like sometimes the client just wants to hear like, what would you do? And, I think different therapists have different input on that. I think the first thing he said doesn't really seem problematic to me, just offering a reflection of like what he's seeing based on his relationship. I would probably like delve deeper into that.
Mm-hmm.
The second piece, I don't think I would ever promise someone it can't hurt.
Right.
My role would more be like, again, one thing I did like is when he opened the door to this session, he said there's no right and wrong or something like that.
Oh yeah, it's not right, it's not wrong.
It's not right, it's not wrong about the affair.
Yeah.
So I did like that because it's like, yeah, that's, maybe some people would say it's always wrong, but
or it's not good, it's not bad.
Oh yeah, it's not good, it's not bad. So I agree. Like we don't necessarily have to put a value judgment on it, but I would probably, in my style, spend more time helping her make an informed choice based on her value system. Right?
Because she's really looking for that okay from him. She's like, in other words, you're saying that.
Yeah. Well,
right?
So I might get curious about that. I might be like, what's so important about getting my okay? I hear that you feel like you need to know that this is all right. What if it wasn't all right? Right? Okay, well, what if it was all right? What does that mean? And like, okay, what are your value systems here? Like, does this align? And then helping her make an informed choice based on risk awareness of like, look, you can do this. Here's what you might get out of it. Like mind, body, spirit. How are we taking into account your overall like health and well-being? And then like, what do you want to get out of this? And then like, here's some potential consequences. Are you ready to accept those? I wouldn't promise it can't hurt because that's fucking bullshit.
Totally. And like she's portrayed to be such a control freak, right? Like she's kind of seen as this person who's always in control. She's always like knows what she's doing. She would never really allow anything else to happen. But It is interesting hearing her talk through her pros and cons list saying, do I have unfinished business with him? Like, does this mean that I want to get back together? Like, what do all these things mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think that the plot of this is so complicated, messy, interesting to me.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It's complicated. Oh my God, Alec Baldwin says it at the end of the movie, and you're like, oh, of course, Nancy Myers wrote in her own.
Well, my first, even before the therapist thing, my first problematic thing had to do with the sex thing.
Oh, tell me.
I did love the friends for most of it, except
the vagina closing up part.
The vagina closing up, but you know what? It's not totally wrong.
Oh my God, could you explain this?
Yeah, so Meryl's hanging out with her friends. She's talking about, wanting to hook up or have sex or like, missing dating. And one of her friends says, you'll have to correct me because you've seen it more than me. But one of her friends says something like, I had a friend and she, waited so long to have sex that her vagina literally closed up and she had to go to the doctor to like have it pried open or fixed or whatever. And so while it's not totally true that your vagina will close and there will be no hole, it is possible when you are not exercising these muscle tissues and the tissue down there that you can atrophy and you can develop various forms of pelvic pain as well as like atrophying tissues and muscles down there. Just the same as like if you were wearing a cast on your arm and lost like muscle mass. And so it certainly is possible that people can atrophy where it can feel like it is hard for anything to penetrate there because of pain or because of things happening with the tissues and the muscles. So it's not going to like actually hole will close, but like things may need to go to physical therapy. Things may need hormone cream. So like I did like that because it was actually sort of correct, but also like
needed a little bit of context.
Just a little adjustment.
I wish one of the friends was a guy now to be like, no, that's not what happens, actually. Yeah. Here's what happens. That would be amazing.
But it's also like it's funny.
It's funny and Rita Wilson's like, ouch. Like they're laughing about it, like being silly. I'd love to kind of transition to an overall bucket that kind of happens throughout the film of manipulation masked as love.
Was gonna say Alec Baldwin gives me the ick.
The ick, dude. He's just like so grimy in this. And I feel like, you know, Jake basically lies to Jane and his new wife to restart their affair. He shows up uninvited all the time. He ignores her clear discomfort. But the film kind of consistently frames it all as romantic. And you know, his behavior is pushy and it's narcissistic, but we're supposed to swoon over this as the viewer. Ick. And to me, this is just so problematic because it normalizes boundary crossing, as you were saying, and dishonesty as signs of passion rather than red flags. Will you give me your kind of sense of this throughout the film?
Yeah, I mean, he just kind of gives me the ick generally, I would say. I mean, I liked him in 30 Rock because he's clearly playing like an icky person.
Right.
But I'm like, is this who you always play? Like, are you just
always
who
you are?
Like, is this
in real life?
Who are you? Yeah. So there's something about that. And yeah, just throughout the film, I mean, I was so glad that she like didn't fall for it forever, you know? Because look, it is, I mean, how do I say this? I had the ick, but I also had a lot of like empathy and compassion for her of like how hard it is to not fall back into that loop with someone who you have history with, who's, you know, who you have that history with, who's charismatic, because, you know, she's probably also been taught that thing of like, oh, he just wants you so much. He's willing to cross all your boundaries and desiring you is more important than respecting you. Like, I think I've struggled with that myself and so many people I know. But yeah, it's gross, and I'm really glad that she like says no to it, but I did wish that there was more of like a call out for it. And there's even manipulation with him like fake crying as well.
Oh my God. With all of his kids just like get on his side right away.
Yeah, where she doesn't want him to stay at her house because he just left his wife that he cheated on with.
/ she might have broken up with him and he's saying that he left her. Like there's constant lying.
Yeah, but like he like fakes this cry so the kids start crying and it's like he let him stay. And it's just like, yeah, it makes me, I think because I've done a lot of therapy work to not, you know, be like, oh, that's hot. It made him so unattractive to me to where he would like lay down and show his body. I was just like,
I know.
That was 5 on the vom.
Oh my God. Nasty. Yeah. I just feel like I wrote this down too. Like there's this one quote where he says, do you always have to say no before you say yes? Oh God. Just constant kind of use of he's a lawyer too, right? So it's very clear that he's made to be this like smarmy guy who's pushing
Let me tell you why this is a good idea for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just feel like everything is kind of on his terms. And that really comes to a head when he makes a date with Jane and he doesn't show up because he's trying to impregnate his wife because she's ovulating. Lake Bell plays this character super well of like the 30-something who is going for the older guy. Yeah. And yeah, I just hate this trope so much. It shows up in so many different rom-coms that we've covered. And sick of it. Really sick of it. And yeah, it sucks that as a teenager watching this, because I graduated high school in 2010. So like I was like, 16, 17 watching this, that I did kind of see this as like, oh, well, if they're going to get, I think like as a child of divorce, it's kind of like, this fantasy that
They'll get
children
back
of
together.
exactly, which like my parents got divorced when I was 5. I like barely saw them together. They definitely don't fit. They're both remarried. None of this is like actually real, but I do think that this idea that Jake wants to kind of manipulate Jane into getting back together with him, even though he's still married and he's like not leaving his wife.
Yeah. And there's also like, well, there's one comment that he says that I like almost vomited actually at, where he just has sex with her for the first time in 10 years since they got a divorce. And he cups her vulva and says, home sweet home.
Oh my God, I know.
And I
atrocious.
Was like, oh, this is, I hated, oh my God, that gave me like full body reaction
gross.
Cringe.
Yep.
And then he negs her too. And for people who don't know what that is, it's like pretending it's a compliment, but really it's like a backhanded compliment to make someone feel like less confident about themselves, often used in like the pickup artist world. And so he says, there was like a scene where he's talking about like all the things that she is now that she didn't used to be and why they could fit together now. And he's like, oh, well, you're so much more this now than you used to be. And you're so much more this now. And it doesn't come across as like in like a positive way of acknowledging like change and growth they had. It comes across as like, oh, you used to be this shitty and now you're good. And it's just,
I know. Yeah, he kind of basically makes it seem like, oh, like you're not always working all the time and I'm not always working and you're not mad that I'm not home. Like I just the whole you're not mad that I'm not being a good husband.
You don't have boundaries about me anymore.
Yes. Like the
great.
whole thing is just so familiar. I think like moving into the next trope of like the shitty dad who gets all the credit trope of like this idea that she's the one who, for the past 10 years has been raising these kids / like the emotional support. He's over at her house. I think the perfect example is the phone rings and he says, don't get it. And she says, I always get it. I have 3 kids, even though they're their kids.
Instead of we have 3 kids,
exactly.
I have 3 kids. Yeah.
So it's just like so clear to me that she's like the doting, devoted mother who's like doing everything she can for these kids. And he is the absent dad who went and started another family.
Yeah.
And he still, gets his kids to get so excited when he's around and they're wanting him to stay for lunch as long as possible. And, oh no, like, can't daddy stay? Like there's just so much packed in there that I feel like single moms who have done the lion's share of raising kids in a divorced household really are just like, fuck you, Alec Baldwin. Like what do you think about this kind of larger trope of like the shitty kind of absent dad who's like celebrated?
Yeah. I mean, don't like it. And as a therapist, I do want to like acknowledge, I did like at the end how, I mean, look, there are certain things where maybe it is just one person's fault, like if like harm is caused or physical harm or things like that. And it is complicated, right? Like I did like at the end how there was some conversations about like how their dynamic led to the affair. And like, yeah, we could put it all on like gross Alec Baldwin or shit. And like maybe it is all on him. But like, yeah, you also hear how like maybe there were other things just relationally where they both contributed to the dance that they did as opposed to like villain and victim.
Right.
So I do appreciate that. And
More
so
nuance.
I do think, yeah, like there is nuance obviously to this trope of like the dad stuff. And like, it's hard sometimes for me to look at it as like a therapist of someone, because if I had an Alec Baldwin come into my therapy office, like I would have to find compassion and empathy for this person if I wanted to work with them to understand like what was this person taught like about masculinity, about boundaries, about like why they are showing up this way, about why they push boundaries, about the narcissism. Like, I would have to sort of understand the nuances of like how they landed here and why they're struggling and how maybe they weren't taught or didn't have the tools to learn how to be an emotionally present person. And just watching it for like entertainment things, I'm like, he's bullshit.
So, you're holding both.
Yeah. So I have
a girl who could do both.
I have I just have the dissonance sometimes of like, not wanting to give excuses to people, but having the empathy and the understanding because I work with people who are both the harmers and the people who have been harmed. And so I'm
Whole
able
people.
I'm able to zoom out and see the whole person. But when I'm not being paid and watching it for entertainment, I'm just like, fuck this deadbeat dad, you know?
Right.
So,
and I think like, okay, so we're going to move on for a second to the cringe corner, which is basically like, you know, the cringiest line or character or anything that has occurred in the film. And, you know, previously my line was, do you always have to say no before you say yes? But we already covered that one. So now I kind of want to move on to the kids' reaction, kind of like sobbing as adults all in the same bed. It just felt kind of like very overwhelming to me. And it did kind of feel cringy, but maybe it's just because maybe this is sweet and like these are just siblings bonding. I don't know.
We're like, why are these siblings getting along so well?
These
cringe.
Freaks.
No, I felt the same way. It was very like
Brady Bunch.
Yeah, very Brady Bunch. But yeah, it was so very like milk toast. Is that the word?
Yeah. Sure.
Where it's just kind of like, oh, we're all siblings getting along and we're all going to New York to support our brother who's graduating and we're having a lovely lunch and everyone gets along with this the eldest's like husband and he's like part of the family and is like sort of enmeshed and we just have these fun parties and it's all it's like a little bit cringe because you're like, whose fucking family is like this?
Right.
Like really? Are you that normal and get along?
Before all the racism happens? Like, what's going on?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But there's something cringe about their lack of trauma together.
Right. But they clearly are traumatized because they're saying like, we're still, I think the cringiest part was like one of them saying, we're still not over the divorce. And it's like 10 years old and you're an adult. Like you need to be in therapy if that's still the case. Like to me, I'm just kind of like, what are you saying? Like this depends on, I guess, how traumatic the
Get
divorce
over
was.
it.
Get over it. But I don't know. I just feel like if you're an adult, like maybe people aren't over it 10 years later, or maybe they haven't gone to therapy. But
yeah,
I don't know. Just kind of felt a little cringy to me personally.
But yeah, I would say cringiest moment I already said, but it was when he cupped her vulva and said,
God.
home sweet home.
Disgusting. Well, Nicoletta, we get to rewrite a part of this film today together. And I want to know, like, is there a particular plot point that you would rewrite about this film in order for it to feel like, I don't know, like more like the affair were on Jane's terms or less like Alec Baldwin was so smarmy? Like, what exactly would you rewrite and why?
It's so hard because I know that people have to make like entertainment and it's like, that's a line a lot of people struggle with, right? Whether it's comedians or filmmakers. Yeah, it would have been great if he just didn't do any of that to begin with and was more just honest about like, I really miss you and I'm struggling with this and like, I just really want to be with you. Do you want to be with me? Yeah, like it would have been nice if it was more autonomy for her. And I think I would have liked at the end, even if that hadn't happened, for there to be like more in the way of like not just excusing him and holding him accountable a little bit more. So like at the end, they're like sitting on a bench together and it just feels like there's a little bit of like excuses for him.
And he says, consider this an all-encompassing sorry for everything that I've done. It's like, no, how about you list it out and you really think about it?
Exactly. Like that moment, and instead having her say something like, I really didn't think it was acceptable that like I told you no and this was put like some kind of more confrontational and accountability for some of the specifics as opposed to that blanket apology. Because like I get that it's layered. I get that they both have like fucked up but yeah, at least because it seemed like she had the energy of like taking her power back and not getting back with him and like saying no to that, like something along those lines.
And choosing Steve Martin, which is like a sweet little ending of like, will they end up together? Maybe.
Yeah, and he had some good boundaries too, where he was like, I'm not ready to get with you if you're in this mess, you know?
Yes. Oh my gosh. This is kind of a side comment, but his backstory, how they just kind of threw that in there, how he and his wife of many years were on a bike trip in Italy with his best friend and wife, and how they left their spouse, like his wife left him for the best friend and then now they're married. Like that would
they had a non-consensual wife swap situation.
Oh my God, that would ruin my life at that point in my life. Are you kidding me? Like that's absurd. So I just love how crazy Nancy Meyers' mind is.
What would you change?
Okay, so I think this is like kind of small, but to me it kind of really does make a difference. It annoys me that like Jake cheated on Jane and then now he's cheating on his wife. Like he is the perpetual cheater and yet the camera frames him and we're supposed to kind of like feel sorry for him that like Meryl doesn't want to be with him or he's the one that's like, I know this is right,
I don't
Jane.
feel sorry for him.
Well, maybe we don't, but I think other people do. Perhaps. I don't know, listener, if you feel sorry for Jake, please write in. Would love to know. But I think I would have loved for him and Agnes to be in the middle of a divorce because then to me, it's like, it's still messy and there's still like feelings like maybe Agnes still wants to be with Jake, but like Jake is kind of like not really with her anymore because just, I don't know. I'm just like, I don't love the whole consistently cheating kind of thing.
Yeah.
It might have still led to like complex feelings for Meryl and she still could have had that like wrestling with whether or not she wants to get back with someone who cheated on her and who she was with, but it wouldn't have to be so like, oh, she needs to feel so guilty for because it is inevitably linked to her sexuality is linked to her guilt of like, this is exciting because I'm doing something bad. Whereas I kind of wish it was like independent of that and there wasn't any guilt attached to her exploring in her 50s.
Yeah. Yeah. I think another part too is like there's the villain is made out to be Agnes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, the person who Alec Baldwin originally cheated on Meryl with, who he then cheats on with Meryl.
Yes.
And so
and then Agnes cheated on Jake with someone else and had a kid and then got back with Jake. It's just like, oh my God.
I mean, yes, she definitely has some questionable things going on for her. And like I do feel like there's often, you know, more stuff put on the woman in the cheating scenario as opposed to like the man.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would have liked there to be just more accountability like on Alec Baldwin as opposed to just like Agnes as being like the, you know, the person who swooped in and stole him away.
Yes.
But yeah, she also has some issues.
She's also kind of a bitch. Nicoletta, we're kind of towards the end here where we are going to rate the film after revisiting it. So your post-watch rating, 1 to 5, you were at a 2. Where are you at now?
I think I'm staying at a 2.
You're remaining.
Yeah, like I don't know if 0.5s are allowed since
they are. They are.
Yeah, I'm going to say like a 2.5. I think there's
because
like
Alec Baldwin's disgusting.
Yeah, because yeah, he's a 5. The film's a 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because it does seem to sort of wrap up in a more like empowered way, and there are some of these like, you know, positive moments, but I think me watching is a 2.5. I would say maybe a person who's not like dissecting it the way we are, maybe a 3.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
I think, okay, even though I cheated and it was a 0, because I just love the Santa Barbara of it all. I love the writing. I love the laughter.
No.
I'm moving it from a 0 to a 1 because I think it's so frustrating to me how like how the manipulation of like Jake's words does kind of like work on her and works on me and works on the audience, even though we think he's gross.
But maybe that's why it does feel so gross, because a lot of us know that it might have worked on us.
Right. Like I think what you said in the beginning.
And sometimes it's even hot. Like I want to name that there's a lot of us who do feel turned on by the consensual non-consent or by like being overpowered in this way. And like when done intentionally, that can be fine and hot and a way to play in like BDSM. But I think it's more like when we don't realize it's happening and we're not in charge of it.
Right.
That's where it's dangerous, right?
Exactly. And I think that, like you said in the beginning, this is a very realistic portrayal. Like, yes, the plot has a million different points. And again, Nancy Meyers is a genius and kind of knows how to connect all of these things.
Yeah.
But I do think like the acting is very real and realistic. And it feels like, oh, like this maybe could happen like in real life. And I really love that. Are you ready to hear what Meryl did for the first time in this film?
Yes, I can't believe I forgot that I was going to learn this.
Nicoletta, I can't believe you forgot. Okay, so here are the deets for the trivia teaser in the beginning of the episode. It's Complicated features Meryl Streep's first ever nude scene at age 60. And if you have a rom-com you remember from growing up, submit it to us, please, by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and leaving a comment on Spotify. Nicoletta, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It was not complicated.
Oh my God, you're so good.
Just had to be cheesy with it. It was great being here with you. Thanks for having me.
Our creator, host, and executive producer is me, Danielle Bezalel, aka DB. Our producer is Sadie Leegee. Our communications lead is Catherine Cohen. Our music theme is by Hook Sounds. Thanks so much to our featured guests, partners, and listeners. If you have a rom-com you remember from growing up and want us to cover it on Rom-Com Bomb, submit it to us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and leaving a comment on Spotify. Want to partner with us? Email us at sexedwithdb@gmail.com. For more sex ed content, follow us on Instagram @sexedwithdbpodcast. See you next time.